All right, the next item on our agenda is a realignment of Lucy Street and Merritt Avenue. And this has been put on our agenda at the request of representatives of the Department of Transportation who are here tonight. If you could just identify yourself.
Yeah, my name is David Head with the Department of Transportation. I work in the intermodal planning office. With me tonight is Melanie Zimieski, who's the project manager for the overall planning study around Interchange 59, and then Joe Scalise in the back is with our bridge design unit, who is here also. We were here
Just so we know that this board has approved the redesign of the Merritt Avenue Bridge without any relocation. Those design papers have been prepared by Cardinal Engineering, and it's in the pipeline for construction to begin
2013 spring.
2013, okay, and it's fully funded. The town's 20% is there, and the state's 80%, or the federal government.
Yes.
So the issue here tonight is whether the Merritt Avenue Bridge should be relocated so as to improve the traffic flow in that area, and that would result in a delay of the reconstruction of that bridge for approximately 2 years.
approximately 2 years. Yeah.
So that's the background of this. So
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So
No, that's fine.
proceed.
And thank you.
Tom, you have
think-
to-
Just one other, didn't we decide not to do this? I mean, I thought that's
We
what
did,
decided the last
we
one.
did.
we did.
And not-
But then, at the request of the DOT, they have additional information they want to give us tonight?
Okay.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think at the last board meeting you said to go ahead with the design as is,
Right.
but gave us approval to go back and look in more detail at what the realignment would mean,
That's correct.
both from impacts and cost to the town and the residents. We've gone back and done that. We've done design. In your packets, you all have that. It shows approximate impacts to several property owners, one residential unit, and several businesses, including the 2 billboards that are pretty much directly across from Lucy Avenue. It would mean approximately a 2-year delay, which I think is the biggest concern at this point. The cost increase is substantial, with none of that falling on the responsibility of the town. The department feels strong enough that we're going to pick up any additional or the local match basically for that. So today, the existing bridge project is about 1.3 million federal, 340 town. Moving forward, the additional costs, estimated right-of-way costs are about $900,000. Construction costs are about 1.4 million. That's federal. The town would not be responsible for any of the match on that. The state would cover the match of $226,000 and $360,000 for those 2 pieces. So when all is said and done, the project cost, the total cost would raise from 1.7 million for putting the bridge back on existing alignment to about 4.6 million, and the town would still only be responsible for the 340,000 that they're responsible for today with the existing bridge relocated on existing alignment.
Okay, so,
And I know you sent a few, or Jerry sent a few questions back that the board had, and we sent those back. I'll answer a couple of them, and I'll ask our bridge design person to answer the other one, as he can do it better than I
let me
can.
just read the question. Given the amount of scouring, will the present Merritt Avenue Bridge last another 2 years or until construction of the proposed bridge is completed?
And I'll ask Joe Scalise to answer
I
that.
saw that, and I don't remember who I emailed the response to beside Melanie, but I'll elaborate a little bit on that. That is not easy to predict, in that it is closely associated with trying to predict the perfect storm that would come through, and predict what type of storm would move it. As it is today, the scour rating is based on the lack of pile-supported foundation. It's what the abutments, the bridge sits on abutments, the abutment sits on the earth. there are no additional supports below those footings, which we call piles, that would support the footings and the abutments and the structure if all of the earth were removed in a major event called scour, and that's what the scour is called. This bridge is identified as scour critical. And every time you have an event that overtops it, we actually send people in to assure that that there isn't additional erosion that has maybe caused an abutment to move or shift or puts it in more danger. And that's why you see it closed for some duration until the waters have receded, and then it's inspected and it's reopened. The ability to predict when that could happen is not there. We're not able to do that. We know this, that if it were designed and rebuilt, it would stand and be supported on piles. And if that storm did come in, and if all the material underneath the abutment were gone, the earth, then the steel support underneath it would still be standing, the bridge wouldn't move. A lot of that has happened recently in Vermont. You see pictures of bridges that don't have a road anymore going to the bridge, but the bridge is still there. That's scour. So to be able to predict when that would happen, I couldn't tell you. As easily as a weatherman can tell you whether or not we're going to get a major storm event next summer. That's what you'd be trying to do.
But another 2 years wouldn't help, right? Another 2 years delay.
I guess what you're doing is you're putting off for 2 more years the ability that that major storm event could come through and maybe cause something to happen. You look at it that way, or you look at someone else saying, we've lived with it for how long, and I don't really know. I'd only be giving you my opinion, and I certainly couldn't tell you how long it's going to stay there without any scour issue.
If this is very critical, or on your critical list, if I understand it, then could this be expedited at any, this is it, right? We have 4 years
If we, 2 schedules. The current schedule, currently, your designer is continuing with the design. It is at approximately 70% complete on schedule. We're prepared to submit permit applications and complete the design so that we could advertise it somewhere in the fall, September, October, November-ish, which would put us out to accept bids for award in the following spring, 2013. We have about 9 more months of work, roughly, to do. A good schedule is the idea that if we were to change our minds and shift the road over and include the intersection improvement with the additional right-of-way time, at this point, and it is time, the additional right-of-way time to acquire all the additional properties and redesign, we'd have to talk about scope of work with the designer, would push that out to 2015. And that's a pretty good estimate. I don't, we talked amongst ourselves at the department, can we get it done in, fall of 2014? And I'm reluctant to say that.
We didn't want to sugarcoat it.
But the idea would definitely be that by 2015, you'd be out of construction.
How many additional properties would be
I
taken?
want to say 6, 7. They're identified there. If you look at the crosshatching red.
Yeah, I see.
There's about 4 partial takes. 1 large partial take on Merritt Avenue. Then there's 2 full takes, which are the properties that the billboards are on. And then there's sliver takes along Lucy Street, of the properties to the south side. When we get into design, we would certainly look at widening that to the north, where we think we have a little bit more right-of-way. We wanted to show that as a possibility for you all so that you could see it up front and it wouldn't come out later. We would certainly try and minimize that as we got into further design.
Have you spoken to any of these property owners?
No, we have not. We wanted to come to the board first and get your input before we raise any flags.
Can you just explain how this works? Is this on a voluntary basis? In other words, the property owner agrees to...
Yes, this would not be using eminent domain. We would look at the town to somewhat shepherd that or help us with that process based on your decision to go ahead with the realignment, if that's what was chosen.
So if one or more property owners decided not to participate in this, that would be the end of it?
If they decided not to participate, we would certainly do everything we could to make as good a deal as we're able to within the confines of what we can do as a state.
But they wouldn't be forced to do this, so, okay. So how long does that process take to speak with each one of these 6 or 7 property owners to determine whether in fact they'll be agreeable to this?
We would go out, once we got go-ahead from the board, we would get our rights-of-way office. They've already done this estimate involved to pull deeds and that kind of a thing, and then go out and talk to the homeowners or business owners and say, this is likely what it's going to be. We would have to go a little bit further into design so we know more in depth. However, we could go out and have initial conversations with the homeowners, just so at least if it was a no, forget about it, then we would know that up front. But you know, the prices that our rights-of-way officers would have would not be exact, and the homeowners or business owners, property owners would have to know that. You know, until we got down to final design, we can't know the exact impact.
Dave,
Yep.
and I'm just thinking right now on this issue, rather than what we might be able to do to circumvent some of those discussions, if the board wanted to move forward and at least consider it, it sounds like you'd at least consider it if the public were if you knew how the public might react to some of the acquisitions. And if that is the case, we would be required to take this to a public informational again, anyway, because the NEPA, to fill that NEPA process, we took a proposal on a bridge plan that is having significant scope changes. We'd be required to go backward to take it to a public info and get approval again to move forward and acquire that right of way. Maybe as a suggestion, the town could, or we could, with the town, contact each and every one of these property owners and they should be contacted, and give them a personal invitation to the public informational, where we could open that up to the public and discuss that change in scope to the project. That might be the best way to get everybody's opinion if that's what the board wants to hear.
And what we would do is make sure that there's 1 or 2 property agents there from the department to be able to talk to these people one-on-one if they so deem that you know they would want to at least know the process and what would go on and that type of thing.
And so while that is going on, that would not delay the work that's being done now for the work on the bridge as is.
At this point, I would really hope that maybe we could, hopefully we'd be talking about a month where we could get to a public informational. And maybe there wouldn't be too much more going on. I know that we've got a 70% submission, and maybe it's to our advantage, which means we've received a set of plans for review. There technically is a little bit of downtime on your designer anyway. We continue with our review of the 70% plans, and in that time frame, hopefully we'd schedule a public meeting. I think the thing that could get sticky is, let's say you've got 7 property owners and 6 of them are in favor of it, and in general, the public is in favor of it. I think it'd be quite a task on your part to say, well, we're not going to move forward with this because there is one property owner. And if you wanted to, you could use eminent domain and literally, take that property. I'm sorry, it's a bad term. Acquire the property using the eminent domain. I think if this was a state project, intersection project that was coming through anyway, 10 years later, 9 years later, 15 years later, the right-of-way will be acquired with use of eminent domain anyway. So I don't know. I don't know how if that would change your opinion. If this were a state project, you're looking at me like I came
Well,
up.
this is a state project.
Not a state.
But I think what we're talking about is that right now it's in your hands on whether or not you'd like to proceed with that.
No, but I want to go back to what you just said a minute ago. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said that 10 years from now, when the state wants to commit more to this,
The intersection.
that intersection, then you might exercise your rights of
No, we
eminent
would.
domain on that property.
We would.
So here's what I want to understand. I want to understand, now you're saying the ball's in the town's court,
Mhm.
but at some point, the state is committed to doing this work anyway.
Maybe not
Maybe not in my
specifically-
lifetime, but at
maybe
some
not, or
point.
maybe not specifically on the proposal that you see with the
Right.
relocation of Merritt, but at some point, some widening of Route 69, whether it involves Lucy or some other,
It's going to happen.
something's going to happen. These.
This has been identified as some kind of corridor requiring that attention.
Yes.
There's
Is
a
that
traffic
correct?
study being
It's
done
in this
right
study.
now.
That's right.
Right.
This is one small part of a major study.
I can say that in talking to our internal folks, that if Merritt Ave is replaced where it is, that will probably serve the functional life of the bridge, which would be at least 30 years. We're not going to build a bridge for a couple $1 million just to move it 3 years later. And that's what we're trying to get the board on board, just so you can make an educated decision on if you want to go forward, that's what this means, or if you want to delay, it would mean possibly, or it would mean better operations in the future.
Gotcha.
And so if the bridge were to be realigned, then what effect would that have on traffic?
Our analysis shows, 20, 30 volumes, you're dealing with level of service B, which is about 15 to 16 seconds of delay getting through the intersection. Today, anybody that drives through there knows the delay is substantially worse. I think it's the level of service F today. So A is the best, F is the worst. And then in conjunction with other options that are going to come out of the study, this will always be, the quote-unquote fly in the ointment, where you have that offset intersection, signal timings and things just won't be able to run as efficiently as if you can get rid of the two signal system. You have the offset signal system with a single signal.
Right, so just so I'm clear, replacement of the Merritt Avenue Bridge with the current alignment maintains an F.
It can probably get a little better with some widening on 69, but it's never going to get very much better just because now you've got another signal head that you're trying to coordinate. And it just,
I thought I understood it.
yeah.
I think I do.
So I think a hearing is the best way to go. I mean, to get a feel. I mean, only looking at Amity Road, Whaley Avenue, down into
New Haven.
the whole work that's been going on for years there, and it's much better now. But it was painful going through that construction process.
Yeah.
So it would not certainly not make. And I drive that every day to work, so I know what it's like, and it would be difficult. But I think I wouldn't feel comfortable saying, yeah, let's go with the realignment. I want to see what the town as a whole has to say with the public information hearing. And I think
Especially
we could
the
do that in a
residents,
month.
this is going to impact.
It's going to impact a lot of
If,
people.
Okay, if no members of the Board of Selectmen have any further comments, there are residents here, I'm sure, that have some comments. Dorothy?
Come forward, sir.
Yep.
Dorothy Martino, 38 Merritt Avenue. I don't know if all the members of the Board of Selectmen are aware, and I know Ed's aware, and Tony. We've been working on trying to get our bridge repaired since 2007. In February, they came up with this plan. They spent all this money to come up with this plan for Merritt Avenue Bridge, and we agreed they were just going to take, it says it right here, they were going to take the garage next to the river, and that they would purchase, and that man would, they'd take some of his property and they would rebuild it. Everybody seemed to be okay with this plan. And by the time it goes in, since 2007, it's going to be at least 7 years. I wonder if this bridge were an upper wood bridge, if it would have taken 5 years to replace the bridge. Also, they're saying there's no cost to the town. First of all, as a federal and state taxpayer, if they're increasing the project by almost $3 million, I think there'll probably be money that my taxes are going to be paying for. They said it's no cost to the town. How about the properties that go off the tax rolls? The residents, the businesses that they talked about, the land where the billboards are. Those people also will be losing income. So I don't see, and as far as helping the traffic flow, I don't think it's going to help at all, because Lucy Street is still going to be all backed up. and if you see the traffic and you know because you come through there, I don't think that's gonna improve the traffic flow. About a year ago, they met with all the residents of the area. We suggested that where Starbucks is, that they widen that to make 2 lanes. If they had come all the way up and widened that, that would give 2 lanes and that would help the flow of traffic. So I don't see what benefit there's going to be to the residents of Merritt Avenue or to the town, or how we're going to be saving money. Also, the bridge is crumbling. It's a safety hazard, and when you approach our street, it's a terrible scene to see. It doesn't help us at all to make the area any more beautiful. So I really cannot see how this is going to be of any benefit to us. And I know you voted against it once before. And Ed, you know, since we were on the board of Ed, how many years is it since we've been trying to improve the traffic flow?
Many. Many, right.
Thank you for listening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, Frank?
Can I speak, please? First of all, I thank the people from the state DOT for being here and the board for considering this. However, this has been going on since 2007 when we first started this process. And the bridge is, as Dorothy said, crumbling. It's a safety issue now. I mean, how long is this going to last? We saw what happened in Vermont. The gentleman referred to it. We get a bad storm. We were lucky because we didn't get the water with the last hurricane. Vermont did. We got the wind, but we didn't get the amount of water. That bridge could have gotten washed away with that past hurricane if we had gotten the water in this area rather than in Vermont. You know, Dorothy said it's costing somebody. It may not be costing the town, but it's still federal money and we all pay taxes. So this project's more expensive. Most of the folks in the neighborhood aren't in favor of it. You know, there's buildings that have to be taken. The other thing is, the last time we went through this, the preliminary application for the local bridge program said it was going to be done in spring 2008, finished in fall 2008. These things never happen the way they're supposed to happen. So we're saying it's going to be delayed for 2 years. Can anybody really guarantee us that it's going to be delayed for 2 years? By the time we get all these people together, the folks from down the street, if this is part of the Exit 59 project, we have people in New Haven that have to be consulted and talked to. It isn't only the people from Woodbridge. And I personally know that most of the folks in that neighborhood are not in favor of changing the location of the bridge. Now, we might want to have another meeting and consult with those people and get a better consensus about the whole thing. But, you know, Dorothy's from the neighborhood, and there's probably some other folks from the neighborhood that would probably agree to this. Also, one of the most important things is if this is part of the Exit 59 project, and it really has to be changed for some reason, you know, we should try to separate it from the rest of the project so that the bridge can go through before, if it becomes part of that, before the bridge can be done in a timely manner. And speaking for myself and most of the folks that I know in that part of the area of town, I have to say we protested it because it's been going on too long. And you know how long we've been trying to get this done. It's been years. And we just think the time delay has been outrageous. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Yes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Charles Reether, I reside at 170 Center Road, and I own the billboard structure at 1671 Litchfield Turnpike It's been owned by my family for over 70 years. My grandfather originally owned the property. My mother was an owner, and now I own the property with my sister, Mary Jane Lazaroff. I'm familiar with the traffic circumstance down there. I commute to practice law from Woodbridge to North Haven during the morning commute and during the commute back home at night. I think there's been minimal discussion about traffic concern. And from my perspective, elimination of that light is not going to help or benefit traffic, as the traffic flow congests as a result of people trying to get on 15 North, whether it's the morning or the evening. And there's been minimal input regarding that I'm aware of regarding any traffic advantage, and I sincerely suggest otherwise. The cost is substantial. As Dorothy indicated, it's $3 million. It is going to be incurred by the state. And the most significant reason and circumstance here is the severe safety concern for our residents of the flats of Woodbridge. They have to travel over that bridge every day. It's going to be longer than a 2-year delay to consider relocating the bridge. I think the bridge should be fixed in accordance with the original plans of the Board of Selectmen. I don't recognize any benefit for traffic. If this board is inclined to discuss this further and investigate this alternative further, I'd like some time to do an independent traffic study to refute any information that the state has. So for these reasons and for the severe traffic safety, public safety issue, this bridge should be rebuilt, and no relocation of the bridge should result. Thank you for your time, and
Thank you.
Good evening and happy holidays.
Thank you.
Could I ask you one question?
Sure.
As a property owner, if you were to pursue this process where, see if there's support for it by other property owners, but as a property owner's property, I understand it would have to be acquired. How do you feel about that?
Well, as I indicated, I don't recognize any benefit for traffic, and I would adamantly oppose any acquisition of my property unless I was satisfied by my own independent traffic study that there was a substantial benefit to the town. And I don't think there is. And I'm concerned about the public safety issue for a number of residents in the flats of Woodbridge. And that bridge should be built and not be delayed.
So Charlie, you're saying as a property owner, you would be opposed to having your property taken for this?
Absolutely.
Not taken, paid for.
Paid for by eminent domain, that
Well,
very word.
No, it's a
not
voluntary.
paying, don't mean
Voluntary.
voluntary. If there's
If
money,
you don't agree, then, you know.
Wouldn't
I wouldn't
volunteer.
voluntarily
Right.
give up the property.
so if there's money on the table
Won't
based on
change your mind.
something, it's not gonna change your mind.
I don't think so, no.
But depending on the amount it could,
Fair market value.
fair market
No.
value.
How's that?
That's a definite.
All right, well, that's what I wanna know.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
Hi, Buddy DiGennaro. I own a small office building, which would be right next door to the proposed realignment. Actually, the south side of my building would be only feet from the new realignment, and it would have many detrimental effects, increased traffic, increased noise levels, increased pollution, and for those reasons, I'm in opposition as well. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Bud Britton, 1800 Litchfield Turnpike. Been at 1800 for roughly 17, 18 years. Lived at 1812 for approximately 2.5 years. I have to say, one of the few joys I experienced by all the power outages owing to our hurricane was there was no traffic in the morning commute and the afternoon commute when people were ladies and gentlemen and volunteered and allowed people to pass, alternated, you go first, yes, wave, thanks. So these traffic studies, I think, are pretty much a farce. I mean, I know maybe a few people couldn't make it out of their driveways because of a tree limb down or a power outage, but after several weeks without power, I noticed as the power came back, so did the problems. When I went to high school, 100 years ago, or 1985 when I graduated, when I'd come from Orange, I would get off exit 59, take a left-hand turn. There would be a right-hand turn only lane, which would dump half of the traffic onto the Merritt Parkway and would free up the traffic going that way 90% of the time. Through somebody's infinite wisdom at the state, they turned that into the straight lane, which is confusing people who have lived here 100 years, made the left-hand turn lane the left-hand turn lane, causing a wrestling match at that intersection and for the entire length of underneath the bridge, causing many traffic accidents and such, and causing people to block the box making the left-hand turn, trying to get through, to hustle their way off to wherever they may go. By turning that back to a right-hand turn lane only, by putting clear markers like you now see at the Connecticut Post Mall, which New York City's been using for quite some time and great success, at the on-ramp for the time being to the northbound Merritt Parkway. Do not block the box when you're stopped in traffic. Through decency and common courtesy, a lot of this problem going in that direction could be cleared up. Now, somehow or another, in the last year or so, we have these nifty new reflectors up where people used to jump the curb and sort of scoot on down where the choke point is, right at Merritt and Litchfield Turnpike. Since they put the markers up, traffic backed up even further. By taking quite literally 3 foot, installing one new catch basin and opening that up just a little bit so people can make their straight down Litchfield to Whaley Avenue route, so people could get on the Parkway, you would dump off a ton of the congestion, and we won't be able to tell until it's done. But if you want a Band-Aid to alleviate the traffic pattern in that area, if you open that up in front of the strip mall, and there's about 1/4 of an acre there of property, so 3 foot at a reasonable price,
The state owns that.
then let's do it. It's put in a catch basin, it's 50, 60 ton of asphalt, and it's a lot of headaches that are cleared up. It's common sense. There's obvious fixes here through paint, through signage, through a little bit of asphalt that should be explored before we take away somebody's house, before we delay the bridge that's about to collapse any day now, any further. And it's all stuff that could have been done yesterday. And, once again, I'll go back to what a joy it was when common decency and a lack of electricity was the best solution for the situation.
Okay, thank you.
Ed, we just brought up the topic, and we met with the police chief and deputy, and they talked about don't block the box at Lucy Street. I don't think that's ever occurred.
It has not been painted, and the deputy chief of police sent a letter to Warren Connors requesting that be done, and I've talked to him about it, so hopefully it'll be done shortly.
Thank you.
Okay. So we've actually now, I think we've heard from 2 property owners who would be affected by this realignment, who are not in agreement to voluntarily giving up their property for compensation for fair market value. Is there anyone else who has any comments? So getting back then to the Board of Selectmen, do we want to change our position in relation to the previous vote we took?
Well, it doesn't sound like it would go anyway, if we went to hearing.
I don't wanna change it.
Right, okay. So if that's the case, then you've made your if that's the case, okay. You've made your presentation, and there's no reason for us to take a further vote. We just note in the record that was our position, hasn't changed.
The position would be that the town is not on board with the realignment of Merritt.
Given the testimony we've heard
Yes.
here, and that the procedure is that there'd have to be a voluntary agreement to accept fair market value for the property, and you say there are 6 or 7 property owners, 2 of whom are here,
Right.
so they wouldn't do that. And then the delay that's associated with that, and then really how much is this going to really affect traffic in light of the overall situation where there is this traffic study going on that will make, I think, much more significant changes, if implemented, whatever that's gonna be. So,
Okay.
I'm
Thank you.
also concerned about the public safety issue, which was brought up by a couple people, that this bridge should be done as soon as possible.
Right, I just want to make sure that I understand the board's
Yep.
opinion that
Sure.
to not go forward and we can stop doing that and the bridge can go forward as is.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you very much, Board of Selectmen.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.